Welcome, everybody, to the second episode of Dan-A-Plooza for January 2023. We have a very special author panel here today. So let's get into meeting our wonderful authors. Our first author, Ann Gefellers Mason. Our second author, Layla J. Amaros. Our third author, Brooklyn Ann. Our fourth author, Michelle Bowser. And our fifth and returning guest, Michael McChung. So everybody who is tuning in and future tuning in, make sure to go ahead and check out these amazing projects. Anne has a project right now. Her play Nancy will be performed at the East Tennessee State University on February 2nd. So if you are in the area, make sure to go ahead and check that out. For Michael McChung, his novel, The Imperium, will debut this month on Amazon. So make sure to go ahead and check that out. For Brooklyn, she is having her book come out, The Free Summer Camp Slasher and His Final Girl. So make sure to go ahead and check out that book as it is available. There's the website. And finally, Michelle Bowser, she has her book coming out, The Blackwell Mirror. It'll be available from Burning Bulb Publishing, and the audiobook will be available in the month of February. And lastly, Layla J. Amaros, her book will be released January 25th. I hope I'm saying this title right. Seraphim's
Seraphim.
Seraphim?
Seraphim's Laminate Inferno. I know, it's a mouthful. I know.
There we go. So make sure to go ahead, check those books out, support the authors, and enjoy a good read. Authors, thank you for joining me on this episode of Dan-A-Plooza. I am welcome to have each one of you as you are talented in your own craft. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So I would like to start with this general question. And I'm going to start with Brooklyn. So, Brooklyn, I kind of want to know if you had a favorite author growing up and maybe what some of your favorite books are. And we'll start with Brooklyn.
Oh, I had several. I got super into Michael Crichton when I was like 9. I read Jurassic Park 5 times. And then, of course, I was obsessed with the Bunnicula books, which those ones were actual children's books. Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim also remains an eternal favorite. Like, I can't believe how well a children's book about talking rats taught a lesson on ethics. I reread it recently, and I'm like, this is still brilliant. And then, of course, I was super into Anne Rice and Stephen King.
All excellent choices. Let's move forward to our next author, Layla J. Amaros. Same question.
Okay, Dan, you could just call me Layla. I feel like that's.
Oh, I'm. Thank you, Layla. Yeah.
Favorite. Well, mine would be Stephen King, J.R. Ward, Sherman Keane, and Larissa Ione and Gina Showalter, which are all people or authors that influenced my own writing style. So yeah, those are my favorite. And my favorite book ever is Pet Sematary.
There you go. Very classic book, and I don't know if you feel the same way, but I always enjoyed the book more than the movie.
Always.
So I recently finished Pet Sematary because I would start it and stop it. So I recently finished it, and yes, infinitely better than definitely better than that remake that came out. It's better than the original movie, but that original movie is still like near and dear to my heart. It's like my favorite.
It definitely is. Um, and let's go over to Anne. Anne, same question.
Yeah, so I will shout out again to the Banicula books. That was an amazing series. Um, I also went through like a Stephen King phase, definitely like in eighth grade. I don't think there's a more enraging book maybe than Needful Things. Like I threw that book so many times 'cause I was so mad at the people in it. Um, Gary Paulson, I really liked his stuff. And then Lloyd Alexander, who did the series that had the Horned King, the Black Cauldron. That whole series really, really got me into fantasy fiction and kind of started my obsession with it.
Oh shit, those were books?
Yeah. Yeah, no. Yeah, seriously, go, yeah. Go check them
Okay,
out.
I gotta find those.
Great choices, Anne. Let's move to our next author. Same question, Michelle.
I actually read a lot of science fiction. That was my thing. And Robert Heinlein was probably my favorite author growing up. And the Conan stories, Robert E. Howard. I had access to, my dad and my uncle had a huge library full of all those like 50s dime store sci-fi novels, sword and sorcery things. And that's all I read when I was a kid.
Awesome.
All right, and let's take it over to Michael.
Dad, you know the answer. Richard Matheson, that's right. And his stories were short, they were good, they were captivating, and most of them became, well, adapted into Twilight Zone episodes. And I'm talking about the ones that were featured in the late 50s, early 60s classic series. And so, and it seems as though that anything this guy touched, anything he wrote just turned into gold, and everyone just gravitated to it and loved it. And so I checked out his books and everything. I got his greatest works in the other room there. He's a good writer. He was really good. He was really exceptional. And namely Dole. And when I read that, that was so great. It's about this traveling salesman who gets harassed the hell and back by this all-known truck driver. He's like a deranged psychomaniac who just keeps harassing them and harassing them and harassing them. And so when I finally watched the motion picture, I also got that on DVD. I was like, wow, it is 1000% faithful to the story that he wrote. And it was so good. He also wrote The Dining Room Only. I read that, and then I watched the picture. It was brilliant. He also wrote an episode for Gene Roddenberry's Star Trek back in the late 60s, right? And he also had written an episode for Have Gun Will Travel, which was a popular Western that dated a little bit before that or around the same time. And the guy was really good. And I'd say he's probably one of my best inspirations, especially for the Imperium that I'm currently publishing. Okay. And when you read that book, you'll see a lot of his influence. My second favorite author would be Rod Serling, right? And the guy, just like Matheson, same situation. He was good. And a lot of his works were very, very memorable.
Oh, those are really great answers, Michael. And I think it's only
I
fair
could go
that
on for ages talking about
I think it's only fair if I answer as well too. Some of my favorite authors. So well, I was a big fan of Edgar Allan Poe, so always reading lots of Poe. I started out with the poems, and then I went into the short stories. And then when I was a kid, I would read those Choose Your Own Adventure books. I don't know if you remember those, but I would read those, and like it would be yes. And I always remember reading them. They'd be like, turn to page, 36, and then you fell down the ladder or something. You'd be like, no, I didn't read that page, and you try to go back. And so I used to read those books quite often. And one of mine actual favorite is S.E. Hinton, The Outsiders. I had to read that for school, and I've always just been a fan of that movie, but the book is better. But I do enjoy that. Stay Golden, Pony Boy. So that's one of my favorite authors. But
Did you see the limited edition of that just got released by Suntup?
no.
Oh, look it up. It's gorgeous.
Are you getting that one, Brooklyn?
No.
Oh, okay. She has so many collectibles of the Suntup covers and stuff, so that's why.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my fancy books.
Fancy schmancy. So as we are moving now forward into 2023, do you have certain projects or things in the works that you are looking forward to being shared and viewed as an author? Let's go ahead and start with Michelle.
Well, I have the Blackwell Mirror that I published last year, but the audiobook version of that is coming out in February. And I have a bunch of other, because I don't just narrate my own audiobooks, I narrate lots of other books for Burning Bulb Publishing. So I have several of those coming out that I'm just narrating as well. So that's what I have on my calendar so far.
That's great. We're looking forward to when you release that. So just keep in mind, and we'll go ahead and share that in the page. Let's go to Layla.
So I have Seraphim's Laminate coming out on the 25th, which started as a short story about a woman's descent into hell and to find out about her bloodline. And obviously, because I don't know how to write anything short, I had to go back and turn it into a full-length novel and series.
It's badass.
And in February, I have another short story that's coming out called Crimson Noir. And it's a retelling of the Grimm's fairy tale, The Old Woman in the Woods. And in March, I have 2 releases, I believe. One is a reverse harem, where my spider people are getting naughty. I'm still working on that one right now. Another one has to deal with women's reproductive rights, and I haven't started that one yet, so I'm still brewing on that. And hopefully, the end of the year, I can I'll have my horror story ready. And yeah, that's my plan for 2023.
Damn.
I've been productive, you see?
Yeah. So we're looking all forward to that, and keep us updated on your success for 2023. And let's go to Brooklyn.
Okay, well, not as much as I'd like. I'd kind of been in a block. I'm working on the 9th Brides of Prophecy novel. That's my urban fantasy series that like goes between multiple worlds. And this one's going to take place in New Orleans, which is a change because most of them take place partly in Idaho and then partly in the other world. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm hoping to have it released by summer. And then working on an epic coming-of-age horror novel set in 1993 that I'm going to have to do under a different pen name because there's no romance in it because it's going to focus on 4 12-year-old, 10 or 11-year-old girls. And I'm not like Stephen King. It's going to be like It for Girls, but without that sewer scene, if you guys know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Well, I think he later said he regretted that sewer scene.
Oh, yeah. I just don't know how the editor allowed it, you know? Like, did nobody say anything?
No.
But anyway, well, it was the 80s, so. But, and then I'm adapting my summer camp slasher romance, His Final Girl, into a screenplay. And I'm hoping that'll be done and ready to start pitching by the end of the year. And then in the meantime, with the link below, I'm giving away free copies for anyone who wants to read and review the book.
It's a really good book. It really is.
You.
Yeah, definitely let me know. I will take a look at it and read it. I don't know how much of review because I'm not really much of an author, but from a general fan point, I can tell you what I think about it. All right, let's go to Anne.
Yeah, well, a lot of what I do is playwriting, and so, like I said, my play Nancy will be at ETSU on February 2nd, and they'll probably get a few other performances this year. Um, it tells a story. So where I'm from, a man named Elihu Embry published a paper called The Emancipator in 1820, and it was actually the first publication of the world dedicated solely to the cause of abolitionism. Just happened to pop up in Jonesboro, Tennessee. It only lasts for a year because he gets sick and dies and can't, then there's no one left to carry on the paper. But at the same time he's writing this, he himself is an enslaver and has enslaved people. And the woman's name is Nancy, and she has 5 children. He tries to free them in his will, but the story tells all that history from her perspective. What was she thinking and feeling during that time? And I have an amazing actress, local actress who I collaborated on it with, Ubanibia Fia Short. And then we do a cemetery play here every year in Jonesboro that shares the history of the people buried in the cemeteries. Other writing wise, every year I say this is a year I'm going to blog more. So I'm just going to say that again for 2023. We'll see if it happens. Then also getting back to the first book I ever wrote, which was a dragon fantasy fiction for probably like elementary school kids. I wrote it like the first draft I wrote when I was in 7th grade. So it grew up with me, that book. But my sister sent it back to me with more edits. So eventually one day it's going to be done being edited and get out into the world. So that's a goal for this year as well.
My first book will never see the light of day ever. I cannot. I cannot. It's so bad. I don't even talk about it. Flashbacks.
All right. Let's go to Michael.
All right. The novel I'll be putting out is called The Empyrean. It falls under the category of dystopian horror and science fiction, which focuses on a future society whose world is in deep peril, but miraculously a sign appears in the heavens, is that there's salvation. The nations then enforce or implement an exodus, okay, which is threatened by an overwhelming terror. And it's just one thing that leads to another. It's very captivating, very horrifying. And if you will, I got some illustrations to share with you and your viewers, okay? And this will become the front cover of The Empyrean. A lot of people have seen it already, but for those who haven't, this is what it will look like, right? And I got another illustration to share with you. It's a brand new one, and I just completed it last week. Okay, this one's based on a scene that occurs toward the end of the novel. Okay, it's kind of, you guys can see it really good.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
All right, so basically, I'll give you a little spoiler. It's a story it's a future story that takes place here in America. Okay, and what you see there is basically a warlord who just decapitated one of his followers. Okay, you'll find out why and what's going on there when you read the book. All right, and it's a very horrifying tale of what happens in the aftermath of a nuclear war. So when you get Star Trek, Mad Max, you glom them together, you get basically the Empyrean. Okay, but in that scene I just showed you, that character's name is Sodom, and you'll learn more about him in the pages of the novel. Okay, and you also want to mention about the project I'll be doing?
Yeah.
On here. Okay, so basically I'll be doing a lot of book touring. I'll be hitting the bookstores, the colleges, the universities. I'll also be appearing on a local broadcast program, and I'll be posted. You guys will see that. What else? A lot going on. And also, there's a second book called The Christmas Night. And that's basically about an altruistic nurse who places humanity before herself. Okay. And she, even if it means risking her own life. And in the story, she goes in the heat of this blizzard, 150 miles out into the countryside for this patient whom she had grown up with. So they're both basically friends. All right. And so as she is on her way to her patient's house, she comes across all these adventures, these horrifying adventures. And you guys are going to like it. It's called The Christmas Night. And of course, I'll be putting out illustrations for that as well. So a lot going on.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to that, and we'll definitely share that in the pages. So, thank you for letting us know and sharing that. Now, my next question is, because I'm always curious, just because of your authors and maybe kind of how you get around this issue. Um, if you ever come across writer's block, how do you work around that? So that is my question. Is there certain things that you do to try and keep writing, or do you, you know, uh, come back to it later? So how do you deal with that if you're not able to come up with something within the story you're creating? Let's start with Anne.
Oh goodness. I don't know. Sometimes, I walk away and come back. Like I said, I've been working on that one book since I was in 7th grade. Goodness. But usually, like, just going to listen to some music for a while or something, or doing something else, like kind of like, or watching a TV show I've watched a million times. So I'm not really thinking about the TV show. Like maybe I'm thinking about what I was writing and the situation I'm stuck in and how to get out of it. So yeah, finding some other sort of like distraction that's mundane, so your brain's still kind of thinking about it in the background, usually helps me, especially music.
That's a good answer, and I'm glad that you're able to work around that. Let's go to Layla.
You know what? My muse, I think, has a drinking problem, and she likes to go to the bar with my friends' music and my other friends' music because she's never around. But a lot of the times, me and Brooklyn were like critique partners, and we exchange chapters and stuff.
Mhm.
So normally, when I hit a roadblock, I'll tell Brooklyn, and I'm like, "Hey, I need help. I don't know what's supposed to be happening," or I'll read a book. Usually, a lot of times, I have to read, and my thing is a book, a chapter. So that usually gets me pumped up and going. And then yeah, like taking a break, stepping away, doing all my other crafts, which you see back here, just a whole bunch of stuff. Um, and then music as well. I write a lot when I'm at work. I'm supposed to be working. That's what like my best ideas. So, but since I work from home now, most of the time, I'm not as productive as I used to be at work, not working and reading my book.
Same.
Yeah. So that's usually what I do.
Understood. And so let's go to Brooklyn.
So I also music is a major go-to because it's very inspiring, and then sometimes favorite movies, sometimes books. I reach out to Layla a lot, except for like when if I get like too like depressed at my block, then I have a tendency to withdraw, and even though I should reach out to my friend, I won't. So
I have to
and
hunt her down. I have to hunt her down. I have to go.
Yep, she does. And it's my block's been so bad over the last couple years that I'm not back in therapy. And then my therapist's idea was all, well, for you to work on this book, why don't we read one of your favorite books together that you find really inspiring, and then we'll talk about it and see how it inspires. So my poor therapist isn't into horror, and we're reading it together. It'll be my 14th time reading this book, but I mean, it's been interesting because even though I've read it 14 times, I haven't really like paid attention to it from like a structural point of view and like what I would want to incorporate from it and what I wouldn't. Like, I think it is one of the best examples of setting as character in a story just ever. So I mean, I've been like, I got a highlighter, I got an old paperback copy of it, and I've been making notes on, okay, well, I really like how they're establishing this character's weakness here, and I like how this is where they're setting the stage for the setting being a character, and so it has been working. I'm getting some writing done, and I hope to have a damn chapter to you, Layla.
I'm waiting. I'm patiently waiting for months. It's okay.
But yeah.
Okay. Let's go to Michael.
It's not too often I come across writer's block because what I do first and foremost is design or write out a comprehensive developmental outline. Okay. But if I should, when I do come across it, which is rare, I'll just take a deep breath, take a shower, and go to sleep. And usually the next day, bright and early, all those ideas will start flooding into my mind, then I'll start writing them down and everything, or I'll practice some basic transcendental meditative exercises, where I breathe in for 8 seconds, hold for 8 seconds, and release for 8 seconds, that would calm my nerves, my mind and body, and that way I'm able to collect my thoughts, and write them down accordingly.
I aspire to be like you, Michael. I really do.
I appreciate it.
Let's get her drinking problem together as soon as she gets her drinking problem.
All right, and Michelle?
I think Anne hit the nail on the head with the mundane tasks. That's what my go-to is. Jigsaw puzzles, go for a drive, go for a walk. Clean the house. My house is the cleanest when I need to be getting work done, and that's the only time it's clean.
I can only say for myself, when I have to do a lot of documentation and writing stuff, I paint. That's what I kind of do. I kind of pull out brushes and, I create stuff on canvases. And so it's just kind of a thing to just cleanse mind and where I just think about the colors and the image. So that's
I'm trying
what
to get
I
back into that too.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, no, I used to paint a lot. I
really
finally did do a painting of one of our old cats for my boyfriend for Christmas, and then I have a painting that I'm working on that's really cool, but I left it downstairs.
Just sketchboards too. I finally got my sketchboard. So.
Oh, scratchboard? Yeah. I'm
not bitter about it at all. But anyway, it's awesome. It's great. It's I'm a huge Chucky fan. So for my birthday or Christmas? I don't know. It's probably
Christmas.
Oh, they're a week apart. She gave me like a Bride of Chucky sketchboard. I knew it was coming, but I didn't expect it to be as good as it was because I cheat and I peek and see what surprise is supposed to be. But they're really good. I'm about to request the second one because I'm gonna wait a little while. Because 3 years. That's how long I have to wait for one. I love you.
Love you
too. So when you have finished a book, is it more easier to try and get it as an ebook or in paperback form? Is there like certain things that you have to go through? I'm just wanting to know, to understand more the process of when it's completed and it can go from an ebook form to paperback form. If anybody can enlighten me, we'll go ahead and start with Brooklyn.
I try to set it up so that you can get both at the same time when it releases. And if anything, maybe the paperback will be like a week later. Just depends on how tight I am on my deadline. If I have a pre-order set up, and then I format them. But I do all my own formatting, and I do formatting for some small presses and other authors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and Anne?
Yeah, I would say probably both too. Although, some things like a novella or something maybe work better as an ebook, depending on like the length. But, my family, we actually manage a publishing company, Mountain Gap Books. And we try to, with most things, put it out in both formats. Because people like both. I mean, some people are about reading ebooks, but some people want to have it in their hand. So.
And Michelle?
All of mine have always gone through Burning Bulb Publishing, and they come out in both. This last one, the Blackwell Mirror, is the first one that I had. It's also available in hardback, so that was exciting. The cover looks really cool in the hardback edition. So
very cool. And Layla?
Same, both. I've noticed lately that paperback's a little bit more difficult than it used to be, because now, at least with my books, with the formatting, you have to get fancier with it, just to compete with all these books that are coming out where they have the images in the book and stuff like that. So the paperback becomes a little bit more difficult to format, but not to get out. Still the same process once you finish formatting. So I try to do them at the same time as well, because I'm one of the people, I like the hard copy of the book. So yes, I try to do both. I don't have any books in audio yet, so I'm working on that one.
Same.
And finally, because I know this is your first book, Michael, so
That's correct. The period will be the first production by Tuye Monhar Publishing, and I plan on releasing it in two forms: the printed softcover as a printed softcover book, and as an ebook. Right, and the same thing will go for my second production, The Christmas Night, when that comes out.
Nice.
very cool. So, well, and I'm more one of those people where I prefer the physical book as opposed to the ebook. So, but I am getting used to the ebook. Brooklyn, I actually purchased one of your ebooks recently, so
Oh,
I haven't
Which one?
started reading it yet, but it's there, and I'm gonna start reading and looking into it this month. So,
awesome.
so as far as all the books that you have put together, have you ever considered maybe of collaborating and maybe working with another author to do a book together? Is that something that you would ever consider doing?
I
So,
used to say no,
mhm.
but the more Layla and I have talked, the more we totally vibe with each other. And if I'm going to collaborate with anybody ever, it'd be her.
Yes, because dark and spooky.
Yes.
And we have very similar writing styles as well. I think that's a huge part of when you collaborate with another author or anyone. You have to have a similar writing style, because I have read books where the writing styles were just totally different, and it throws off the flow of the book, and it makes me not enjoy the book.
Sleeping Beauties. Sorry.
So yeah, it's like three people besides Brooklyn. It's like three my other friends that I would collaborate with. I have collaborated with one person before, but what I've noticed a lot, just with me personally, is that I tend to be the one to give all the ideas, and it no longer turns into a collaboration. It's now
Mhm.
it's now my work, because I came up with everything, and when I feel it should be a 50-50. But we split the money 50-50, so and the rights and stuff like that, which is fine. But that's why sometimes I'm iffy about collaborating, because
That's always what stopped me.
yeah, it turns into it's all my idea, and I have ideas for days. Doesn't matter what it is. I could look at a ball and all of a sudden I got a series. So it just it'll lead into things that. And then another thing is, it'll be we'll start, the idea is supposed to be one story, and I'm like, hey, this works as a series, and we plan for the series, and the series never happened. And well, now I can't use it because it's with somebody else, so
Yeah.
that's why I'm always iffy about collaborating with other authors and stuff.
That was very informative. Like I feel like I like I learned a lot,
I'm sorry, I just interrupted. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I feel like it's like the more you know, Dan, and now I feel I feel educated now. Um, and have you ever considered collaboration?
We've done like collections, which is of course isn't the same thing because there's all separate stories. I mean, yeah, probably, but again, kind of like what Layla and Brooklyn were saying, I'd have to find someone who kind of meshed with my styles. My sister used to be an author, but we wrote very different things. So everybody was always like, "Why don't you write something with your sister?" And I was like, "That would not go well." So yeah, you really have to find someone kind of like when Dean Koontz and Stephen King would do things together. Find like voices that mesh really well.
Awesome. And I think I love that you mentioned Dean Koontz and Stephen King, because I was a big fan of King and Koontz. So, Michelle?
I'm open to the idea. I, would have to find someone with my twisted sense of humor. Most people are not. Bizarro's a very, very niche genre. I don't know, but yeah, I'm not opposed to the idea.
And Michael?
Well, I'm all open for a collaboration with anyone. All right. And that would sure break the monotony of, always writing, by myself, and doing everything solo, and I think having someone there with me, feeding me ideas and sharing what's on their minds, that can help move a story forward, I think would be awesome, so I'm all open, for any collaboration with anyone. Yeah.
There you go. Michael's ready for it. So, do you remember the first book that you wrote and your kind of reaction when it was finally published? Let's start with Michelle.
Yeah, it was. I never intended to publish it, and now it's a movie, so that worked out well. It was just a writing project. I belonged to a writing group, and it was just a project. It was the desk clerk. It was about when I worked at a hotel, and it was just writing exercises I did for the writing group. And then everybody in the writing group was like, "You have to publish this. You have to publish this." And I didn't really know what to do with it, and it didn't fit any normal format. And the Kindle was just becoming a thing. The self-publishing ebook was just becoming a thing at that time.
Mhm.
So I thought, well, I'll try that. So I self-published it through Kindle, and it did pretty good. And then I started publishing books with Burning Bulb, and then Gary Vincent, the publisher, said I'd really like to publish, Desk Clerk as a nice paperback. And so we did. And then that's when we started the audiobooks. He said, it sells good, but let's try audiobooks. And that started the whole audiobook thing, and that started my job as narrating audiobooks even for other authors. And then he said, Burning Bulb got into the movie business, and he said, let's turn Desk Clerk into a movie. And I said, okay, so now it's a movie too.
That's awesome.
That is nice. That is nice.
Yeah.
Living the dream.
Right?
All right, let's go to Brooklyn.
Oh, goodness. So, my first published novel I kind of wrote on accident. Like, my mom had passed away on Valentine's Day 2009. And even though I'd written the novel that would eventually become Wrenching Fate, Bride's Prophecy Book 1, which that evolved from a self-insert interview with the vampire fan fiction I wrote when I was 13 and then burned because I was so embarrassed. But anyway, I was querying that, but doing it all wrong. And then I set it aside. And then when my mom passed away, I needed just an extreme escape from the stuff I was usually writing. So I dove into my guilty pleasure Regency romances that I love to read. And somebody had when people were asking me what I wrote and when I was talking about Wrenching Fate and everything, they're like, "Oh, like Twilight?" Because it was during the Twilight craze, and I'm like, God, no. And then I'm like, when was the first vampire craze? Why is everyone acting like Twilight's the first thing? I mean, I already knew about Anne Rice and Dracula, but I'm like, what was there before Dracula? And I found out that Lord Byron's doctor, John Polidori, wrote the first vampire story in English. And there was a Twilight-esque vampire craze that launched in Regency, England. So that's how I wrote Bite Me, Your Grace. Not a vampire duke. It's like Bridgerton, but with vampires.
Love it.
It was fun. A lot fluffier than my usual, but fun.
Okay, Layla?
So my first published one, because that other one's never seen the light of day, like I said before. Eternal Light is my first one that went through about 50 revisions, even while it was published. And that came about because when I got into paranormal and urban fantasy, I binge when I start liking stuff. So eventually I got tired of the same 3 types of paranormal: werewolves, vampires, fae, fairies, witches. And I'm big into ancient mythology, Norse, Greek, Egyptian, whatever it is, I love it. So I'm like, there's so many other creatures, gods, and monsters, and whatever you want to call them, that are out there. I'll write it. And so it was supposed to be 7 books, and each one was supposed to represent a sin. For my first book, that was a huge undertaking, so I changed it, and it deals with the Cerebrus, and there are 3 brothers, but there's side characters that get their own books, other major characters. And so Eternal Light's the first one, and Raiden is near and dear to my heart. But I get so many comments about how he's such a whore and an asshole.
He was.
Raiden, but he was purposely written that way.
I know. He had a good growth arc.
In my defense, by the middle of the book, he's okay. He's not great.
He is. No, I kept reading. I was like, I trust Layla.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, no, he definitely starts off. He doesn't want to be bothered. He messed up Hades and Persephone's marriage. And it was my own crazy idea. But Eternal Light is near and dear to my heart because I feel like that was something where I finally decided, because most writers, when we're young, we're all into it. We don't really think about like seriously making it a career because life starts to happen. Like me, my grandmother was getting sick, like, things were just happening. And but Eternal Light was when I finally decided that I want to be a writer. No matter what, I'm giving it 120%, balls to the wall, excuse my language, but we're gonna go. And I never looked back. My only thing is, at the time, self-publishing wasn't a thing when I started. It was not a thing. Editors were crazy expensive. It $20,000 to edit. I'm a college student. I barely got money for macaroni and cheese. Like, I can't. So again, Eternal Light was my test baby, where I wanted to know if I knew grammar. I knew I had to get it edited. I knew all of that. But I wanted to see if the story itself, because it was different from what was out at the time, people would want it. If readers would. And once I got positive feedback, they pretty much said, "Oh, the story's great, but the editing." Then I went back and started going through edits and stuff and revising and writing till I could afford, a decent editor. And then it got its final edits, and what it is now. I'll probably go back one more time when I do like the box set, but I'm tired of reading that book.
It's a
So
good one.
yeah, Eternal Fire is better. Eternal Fire is better. Wait till you get to Eternal Power, Brooklyn. Oh, it's great. But anyway, yeah. So that's my first published one. So yeah.
You've been on quite the journey there, Layla. But
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm long-winded. I apologize.
Oh no, it's fine. It was quite the tale, but it was very important, and I appreciate you sharing that. So, all right, let's go to Anne.
Yeah, well, like I said, obviously the first book I wrote has not been published yet. Someday. But like the second full book I completed, because I have like so many that are like halfway done or like a quarter of the way done. The ones that get abandoned are like, please come back and finish me. But my second full length novel I completed the summer between in 2009. Finally got published in 2018, and I don't know, that was a great moment because I don't know, I never thought at that moment that I knew I wanted to be a writer, but I never thought for some reason I'd actually get a finished, completed, published book. And since then, working on a sequel for that and some other ones, but it was a great feeling.
Awesome. I'm glad that you were able to have that and experience that. And then, Michael, you haven't experienced it yet, but what do you think your thoughts will be after you have it published? I know it hasn't come out completely yet.
That's going to be it'll happen very soon. Where I'll have that very first experience, that very first feeling that'll be incomparable to any other. It'll be a feeling of achievement. I'll say that. It'll be a feeling of victory. As I mentioned before, I put so much hard time, energy, and money into this big project. So, yeah, it's going to be something to look forward to. And happy that it's finally coming, that everything's finally winding down, so.
Awesome. Well, as we get ready to wrap stuff up on Dan-A-Plooza, is there anything you want to say or promote? We'll start with Brooklyn.
I'd say, well, if you like heavy metal, and you definitely want to check out my Hearts of Metal series. The first book's called Kissing Vicious, and it is free everywhere. So you're free to try me. That urban fantasy Wrenching Fate I mentioned, that one's also free. So if you like urban fantasy or you like vampires, go for that. I've got the link to my horror romance, the summer camp slasher, His Final Girl. Link is below, and it'll be at the bottom of Dan's page. So yeah, got those.
All right, we will definitely look forward to that. Layla?
Just check out Seraphim's Laminate coming out on the 25th, which is my descent into hell, and it's real fun. And check out, you can follow my page where I post like updates on everything because I'm always doing things. And yeah, that's about it.
All right, Michelle?
Everything, all of my books are available in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook from Burning Bulb Publishing, which is, you can get them through any bookstore, Amazon or Barnes & Noble, any place that has books. And the movies, the Desk Clerk movie is available on Amazon, Tubi, and I think a couple other places. I can't remember, but for sure you can get it through. You can see it on Amazon Prime or Tubi.
Sweet.
Very cool. Anne?
Yeah, so I've got a website, AngieFlowersMasonAuthor.com. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and I just update regularly about what's going on.
All right, and Michael?
All right, so for those who are involved or appreciate the Twilight Zone, Star Trek, or Mad Max, or any of these dystopian pictures, the Empyrean will be just right for you, which will be debuting this month.
Yay.
All right, we look forward to that. That's going to wrap it up for our author panel. So I would like to thank my guests, Michael, Michelle, Brooklyn Ann, Layla, and Anne. So everybody, thanks for joining the author panel. Stay tuned. Dan-A-Plooza will be back with Liz Stiletto and Batsy Von Crazy. Everyone take care. Have a good night.
You as well.
Thanks, Dan.